Hey, what's going on, guys? Just wanted to catch up with you again. Talk some more Jets football. We know we got the draft. It'll be coming up in a couple months, hopefully sooner than later. It's going to be a pretty dry season for us, aside from checking up on all the scouting reports and all that. But, anyways, today's video, I wanted to kind of cover. This will be for the offensive side. I'll do another one for the defense. But essentially, who I believe the core pieces will be that we should build around. And definitely a player coming either from the draft or professionally already that's in the NFL that can kind of help with that acceleration of the offense. So for starters, the easiest one is going to be the quarterback, of course. So we have Zach Wilson. And overall, we talked about his, rookie season endlessly, nitpicking all the little details, what was great, the lack of interceptions for the last 5 games, kind of the improvements to him processing, not really hesitating, all these things, as well as some stuff that he was still needing to go into the offseason improving, obviously. Now, the biggest thing that we can do for him, because obviously as the starter, unlike any other position, he's going to primarily have the ball in his hands at all times. So his development is really going to come from, again, experience, and two, who he has in his corner in terms of the development team. And it's yet to be seen if we'll still keep the coaching staff the same way we previously had it. So Mike LaFleur, of course, still being the offensive coordinator for us. But do we bring back John Beck? Do we have some of those other assistant positions and stuff that are there? Maybe they want less voices this go around. John Beck's going to be continuing to working with Zach Wilson in the offseason. But personally, in the quarterback room, I think it was more interesting hearing some of the comments Robert Saleh was saying in terms of definitely wanting to include Joe Flacco back in the room. And that would be my go-to player in this case. I did like kind of having Josh Johnson around and stuff like that for a while. But when you talk about how a starter who's played at the highest levels in the league, was able to win a Super Bowl, he has more game experience than Josh Johnson. And, ideally, like we've seen in the Dolphins game, he'll be able to manage things as best as possible given the situation. So I think that will be the smartest move for us. We get a veteran in the room. He can walk through the mechanics of how to go about his day continuously with Zach Wilson, and then just be in his ear off to the sideline. Certain things that he's seeing, maybe he'll pick up on some tendencies maybe the defense has that Zach Wilson just wouldn't be prepped for due to lack of experience. So aside from that, I think we did see the improvements. I can't say it's directly related to Joe Flacco being there, but it was enough to make Robert Saleh do a 180, and the rest of the coaching staff, from when they originally were stating they were fine having all rookies in there, essentially. I believe we started out with Zach Wilson, James Morgan, and I can't even put my finger on whoever the third guy would have been at the moment, but needless to say, nobody that the league would be aware of, minus Zach Wilson, since he was a high pick. Moving into the running back position, though, I think everybody obviously would agree Michael Carter is the future here. For all intents and purposes right now, we'll see how important, or what kind of emphasis they put on it in the draft. But if we're talking about him being running back one moving forward, I think potentially the best thing we could do on the offense, assuming we bring back like a Tevin Coleman, or I did hear Mostert might be coming over, potentially with him being an unrestricted free agent. But needless to say, Michael Carter, Tevin Coleman, a guy that I've really been, well, there's two, but one that I think is a little bit more realistic with us maybe being able to pick him up in the 4th or 5th round, would be Tyler Algier. I'm probably butchering his name too, by the way. But either way, bell cow potential. I think he ran just over 250 plus times last season. He's a bruiser. He has underrated speed to his game, but I kind of like the combination of him being more of a power back, but he also kind of has this little bit of shiftiness about him as well, which is, it could come in clutch, extremely huge. Ideally, it essentially would be like giving Michael Carter Javonte Williams again, which I'm all for. It was a crazy 1-2 punch there. So when you think about defenses having to cater to Michael Carter's balanced, elusive style running, where he can make a couple people miss immediately, bounce off a few tackles, take it to the house, and then you bring in Algier, who can come in and just, knock you in the mouth a couple of times, but then can also run away from you maybe on a potential couple stretch runs or, misdirection, something like that. Hugely underrated part of our team. And then we would still have a Tevin Coleman who can come in. Keep in mind, Michael Carter is also pretty solid in the receiving department, although I think he needs to work on his hands a little bit more, but you see the potential there. Ty Johnson we still have, who essentially would be like a lesser version of Tyler Algier, I would imagine anyways. And then we still have Tevin Coleman, as mentioned, that we will bring back, who can be more of that receiving threat if, let's say, Michael Carter doesn't develop that part of his game right away. So I think that will bring the balance to the offense that we're looking for, especially in kind of those short situations. As far as the 2020 draft class, I think it's pretty obvious that LaMichael Pirine just isn't working out for what I guess LaFleur will want to do in his offense. Numerous players skipped over him that we brought in. He was essentially like the Denzel Mims of the running back room, which was pretty rough, except he just didn't get the extra opportunities to make it work. So maybe on another team, he did have some opportunities. I was definitely excited for him, seeing what he did with Adam Gase's scheme. But if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And, better safe than sorry trying to fit a, square peg into a circular hole. So moving into the wide receiver department, Elijah Moore is the guy for me. I know we have Corey Davis that came in. He had a solid enough season prior to all the injuries. But Elijah Moore is the guy. Youngest player that we're going to have on the team in terms of just bringing him in, being able to groom him in the offense along with Zach Wilson. And I think once we've seen things kind of click for Wilson, and then, of course, what some of the other veterans, Joe Flacco, Mike White, were able to do with Elijah Moore, since they had a lot more game experience, you can see the game-breaking potential there. Needless to say, I think with the offense, we know kind of what LaFleur is looking for. He needs the timing of the offense to be perfect. That means that we're going to need people that are good at the release point. We're going to need people that are very efficient in their route running, which is kind of what Denzel Mims has been lacking in his offense, according to them. And then, of course, just a studious mind. But physical traits are always going to take some measure of presence in the NFL, especially depending on what kind of teams you have set up, where you're at in your goal to the Super Bowl overall. But needless to say, my favorite player by far, and I'm not a guy that really dives into a lot of scouting when it comes to the college stuff. I look more so for reports. I'm not watching a whole lot of film, just don't really have the time. But Drake London was a guy I immediately ran and went to go check out. I was way off on the previous video. I thought it was like somewhere between 30 and 55 catches for the guy. 8 games, he had 88 catches, went over 1,000 yards, just 8 games prior to breaking the ankle, I believe it was. Ridiculous. 6'5". The man offers he's a large body. Essentially, he's kind of like a Mike Evans almost. Just, physical stature. So it would be nice to have something like that. And you've seen the production. Sophomore, rookie year, he put up really good numbers while not necessarily being a starter. And then when he did get his first full-time potential prior to the injury, ridiculous stats that he put up. So I would be all for it. I'm assuming, everything with his medicals would check out well. But you can't ask for too much more, especially with him being in the SEC. We know he's facing tough competition, very solid cornerbacks. So, it's not kind of like and no shade, like a Zach Wilson situation where they're saying, he's finally healthy, he balls out, but it's against a weak schedule. We're talking high caliber opponents. Linebackers don't offer, much of a chance against him, and the cornerbacks couldn't keep up with him. He's physically outmanning some of these people. And per one of the scouting reports that I've seen, it was kind of like a man playing amongst boys, was just essentially what we, got with the Becton pick. So I'm all for it. I doubt that we'll go that route unless we end up doing some trade backs. But I would be ecstatic to see him on the team. The more realistic thing that I think we might end up seeing is technically one of two other players. It's either Garrett Wilson for me, or it's going to be... I'm drawing a blank on his name. Hold on, guys. Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. That's my other go-to, but I think that Wilson might offer the more realistic fit maybe for the offense right away, and that we can develop over time. Um, and a lot of that is essentially going to be for the same reason. I've heard a lot about the mental aspect to him, which you don't really hear a lot for a lot of players, but I think it's key. So, Garrett Wilson's getting in the room. He's studying. He's trying to run through his routes and get that perfected. He's definitely a speedy guy. So while he doesn't offer the 6'5" frame that we have, 6 feet is still very solid. And he might be able to move past a couple players. Still some holes in the game, of course. Any rookie coming out is going to have those, even if, they come out and dominate like a Jamar Chase did. We've seen the drops in the preseason and stuff. He turned it around. I think Garrett Wilson will offer immediate production, especially when we've started doing various things like we did with Elijah Moore. And at least Garrett Wilson's frame will allow him to do that potentially a little bit more effectively without having to worry about, maybe injuries coming up, where we can use him a little bit in the run game. And we essentially kind of give ourselves a Deebo Samuel type of player. And maybe we allow Elijah Moore to just stick more so to going in the slot, going out wide when we need him to. And we got a few different players now that can do bubble screens, and set up different things like that. So I think that might be the perfect pairing for him. Otherwise, still, fingers crossed, I hope Drake London ends up on the team somehow. It would be an amazing fit. Now, when we get to the tight end room, obviously, I don't think we have a core player here, but if fingers, arm twisted, and I got to go with a player, it would probably be Ryan Griffin. We've seen him produce in a number of different roles, couple big games here and there, especially when you're considering the Adam Gase scheme as well as here. He had, a solid or two game for what the tight end position has looked like for us. But I think the future of the team will essentially be tight end Trey McBride. I do like Ruckert as well, as potentially the go-to, but I think in terms of us attacking probably the best player on the board, the consensus seems to be McBride. For me personally, I think the smartest route to go is going to be whoever offers the best ability as blocker immediately while still being able to potentially improve on that, as well as having some kind of immediate receiving ability that they can offer us. Maybe we can't use the seams often, but they're able to release on short and intermediate targets very quick. Trey McBride seems to be kind of the unicorn for us. Plus blocker, he's in a Colorado offense where the run game was the priority, and he was still able to put up over 1,000 yards. And I think he had like 12 touchdowns or something crazy like that. But either way, ridiculous stats on a team that doesn't even focus on passing as the, major boon for that offense. I think it's just kind of the the best of both worlds. It'll be the player that essentially can put us over the top. We'll be able to run some of those 12 personnel schemes that, we tried to do earlier with LaFleur being on the sidelines, working with Wilson, and, something about him being able to see the sky view helped change a little bit of how we were approaching things. I think he used the personnel as best as he could. This would completely open things up. Now, I don't really have a player comparison that I can give you guys right now. But I think Trey McBride either comes in and he's the starter right away, depending on who we pick in free agency, or he develops to be that extremely quick. And if not, I can't even think of another offense other than the Patriots off the top of my head, with them having Hernandez and Gronkowski at one point. And not to say that he's going to be either one of those two players, but when you talk about having a 1-2 punch at the tight end position where either player can put up some ridiculous numbers, I think this is the guy for us. So I'm kind of hoping he falls to us at number, in round 2, potentially that first pick. Better safe than sorry. We don't, what's 2 picks worth of a difference when we're talking value there. But personally, in the position that I've been looking forward to the most, and I've gotten a lot of slack for this, but Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be my core player, and that's not what I've gotten slack for. I think we all can agree, even with the trade ups, it's a home run pick for us, right? We got a guard of the future. If Becton pans out and he actually stays available, because I don't think anybody has any issues with his production, and how he's developed as a talent, but the development has been minimal. He's not available, and your best ability is availability, as they say. So it is what it is there. But for the pick that I think can really transform this offense, and we've seen it, we've had Mangold, who's essentially held down our offense since a lot of us have been born if you're before 30 years old. We've essentially had two centers that have really locked down that position for the New York Jets for the better part of the entirety of the franchise's lifespan in the NFL. And I personally would like to get back to that. I think it's definitely the most important role when you're talking about the communication between quarterback and offense, and them kind of being the main go-to on the line in many cases. Tyler Lindenbaum's the guy for me. I won't necessarily care if it's at 4 or 10, although 4 does seem pretty high. But Tyler Lindenbaum's the guy. Even at any one of those two picks, I wouldn't complain too much. Somebody else is still going to fall down, and we'll still get a very awesome selection at number 10 if that ends up being the case, right? I don't see them picking him at 4, but just saying. I don't know what's not to love about the guy. The word generational has been thrown around quite a bit. I think he matches that description as best as possible. And Iowa, keep in mind, has put out a lot of amazing players most recently. It, it didn't sway me in any way, but I thought it was even more funny that, Tristan Wirfs, we know, has developed and he's looked like an awesome tackle, which has made some people, moan and groan a little bit more, even more so about Becton. But there was a recent video that came out with Tyler Lindenbaum, like, completely dominating this man in a wrestling match. And I don't remember if it was, like, in high school or college, whatever the case was. Assuming high school. Needless to say, Tyler Lindenbaum's, like, one of the very few criticisms that I heard is just his size and stature. I think he's somewhere around, like, 280-ish. Still, if nothing else, he's just going to be the center that a little bit smaller than some of the ones around 300. But he's going to go in and he's going to completely wreck you. So, me personally, without a doubt, Tyler Lindenbaum is like one of the two main players that we absolutely have to grab. If I'm going to put it out there, for me, it's going to be a Drake London and then a Tyler Lindenbaum potentially. Although I would love a trade down scenario. Maybe get something closer to like a pick number 7 and then a number 10, or, maybe we get somewhere down to like that 14 range. But still, those would be my two head over heels. I would love them. Drake London, Tyler Lindenbaum, those are my guys. If we do get Tyler Lindenbaum, again, assuming that you have no problems with Becton, that immediately gives you a whole left side of the offensive line completely taken care of. We can get a free agency pick for the right guard, and then we still have either Morgan Moses that might come in, or we have George Fant that can come in and do a very excellent role as we've seen in the past, or even switch some things. I've heard some interesting decisions regarding moving back into right tackle with how well Morgan Moses performed in pickup duty. So again, I'm all for it either way. But let me know what you guys think. Who's some of your perfect matches in terms of who can help accentuate the offense that we have and some of the talent there? Am I way off? Or do you guys agree with a lot of the picks here? Obviously, a lot of these feel like kind of picks that you can't really argue with too much. But I know everybody kind of has their favorites, at least in the early portions. But thank you guys for all the support. Looking forward to giving you some more content, and peace.